Half Size Me, episode 716. Brought to you by the amazing Half Size Me Academy. To join us, please go to halfsizeme.com/join. Hello, beautiful listeners. Today, you are getting another awesome interview from one of my former coaching clients. This is going to be with Miss Kelly. She is a fantastic mom, has several kids, and she really got a lot of benefit in coaching with starting to reduce the amount of things she thought she should do or had to do in order to move herself forward, starting to look at how certain habits she had were really not working for her. And I really feel like this episode could be super helpful for all the moms out there that are trying to balance taking their families on vacations, feeding people, trying to make sure that, they keep connection with all the things that their kids have going on, and still finding time and ability to focus on their own health goals. Kelly is really good at doing that. She really blossomed in that area during our coaching, and I'm so excited she was willing to come on and share her story with you. And I just want to encourage you. I know you got to hear Kim back in episode 714 and now Kelly in 716, and I bring on my coaching clients from time to time. And if you've ever thought to yourself, I really would benefit from that one-on-one connection with Heather and going through my unique situation and getting direct help from her, I do take on clients. I do have spots available for clients. And so if you are interested in that, you can just go to halfsizeme.com. And when you're there, you're going to see at the top where it says coaching, and you click on that. And that's the coaching, the one-on-one coaching page. And that just gives you some testimonials. It gives you information on coaching. And then there is a survey that I ask everyone to fill out. So if you feel like one-on-one coaching could be beneficial for you, it would be helpful to dive into your unique set of situations, please go there and feel free to sign up. Again, that's at halfsizeme.com. All right, without any further ado, let's go into this wonderful interview with Miss Kelly. All right, lovely listeners, we are super fortunate today. We have one of my former coaching clients, Miss Kelly, on the line with us, and she is also an Academy member. And so, Kelly, I would love for you to say hello to everybody, and then if you can maybe, because it's been a while since we had started coaching, if you could maybe take us a little bit back into your past and share when you can start to notice that maybe either your relationship with food wasn't good, or weight loss became a focus, or body image issues became an issue, and just kind of take us back into your past a little bit.
Oh, great. Thank you for having me, Heather. It's just a pleasure to talk to you, to have this opportunity to share how much you've helped me through the one-on-one coaching, but also just being part of the academy and participating there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can go back to sort of childhood if that works.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I grew up in the 90s out in California, and I had exposure to an early nutrition education program through my school called the Catch program. And they kind of coached us to eat low fat food, hide the salt shaker, that sort of thing. And I think that sort of began a pattern of internalizing food rules in my mind. My parents were very supportive, and they mostly cooked at home. My mom was at Weight Watchers periodically. My dad kind of had a sweet tooth. I didn't have a weight problem, but by 8th grade, my brother had made a suggestion. He's like, hey, you're looking at sports in high school. Maybe you should do cross country because that'll keep you skinny. And that, it was a minor comment, but that kind of lodged in my brain where I thought, oh, okay, this is something like a mindset I should adopt. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty active. I rode, I ran cross country, but my relationship with food was already developing some layers. And then fast forward to college, complete lifestyle shift. I went from eating most of my food at home to having literally 24/7 access to food with the buffets. They had, a late night grill that opened at 10 p.m., vending machines. So I did start to gain weight. And then to sort of solve that problem, I added in more exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up for a marathon, and, you and I know that over exercising, exercise is wonderful, but it doesn't typically move the needle with weight loss. If anything,
Mm-hmm.
it can make you really hungry.
Yes.
And so to kind of cope with that, I started to develop bulimia. That was not good, but
Right.
um, then by senior year of college, I was engaged to be married.
Mm-hmm.
And I did lose some weight at that point. Mostly it came from excitement, just super thrilled to be marrying the love of my life, and didn't have a big appetite, but it wasn't from healthy habits.
Right.
And so the subsequent years were sort of spent between different diets like fasting, low carb, volumetrics. That's where you just try to make everything bigger with water or fiber, just, um, pumping up the volume.
Yeah.
But these weren't very effective. And in some cases, it was damaging, especially the volumetrics. They led to a lot of, stomach upset. And then I did started to have kids. I had a set of twins and I had a C-section. So that led to even more digestive issues because I had some scar tissue from the C-section. So it made it more complicated.
Yeah.
Um, at some point, I heard about your podcast, started listening,
Yeah.
and this was after my fourth child, and I loved it. But I found it a little tricky. Like, where do I start? How do I implement some of these changes? Because you have quite a variety of guests on the show, and they all have different stories, but none were quite exactly like mine.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you and I started one-on-one coaching, that's when I felt like I had a real breakthrough and just relief from everything. I expected to hear from you a bunch of food rules that you would analyze my fitness pal and be like, oh, you're eating the wrong
Yeah.
breakfast, or, you got to have more potatoes at your lunches. And it wasn't like that. It was habit focused. And I remember one of the first things you had me focus on was grazing, which I didn't even realize
Yeah.
was a problem. Quite frankly, it was like, what's a grape
Yeah.
here or a peanut butter and jelly crust there? It's just like minor. But when I started to just focus on that one little habit, suddenly hundreds of quote unquote invisible calories just dropped away.
Yeah. And I remember that too, because you fell into the same place a lot of moms with multiple kids fall, which is you're surrounded by food all day, every day, right? And a lot of it could be even healthy because it's like, you're serving it to your kids. But like you said, it's a grape here, a handful of carrots there, one sugar-free Hershey Kiss here. And before you know it, right, this like 200 mysterious calories. And you were already a pretty small human being. And for you, that really was, in a lot of cases, the difference between being in a deficit and not being in a deficit.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. And then, you have the kind of the household manager mindset of, I don't want to waste food. Like, if
Yes.
he's not going to eat it, we can't throw it away. It's got to go into my body, of course.
Yes. And honestly, that's another big one. I hear that from a lot of moms, right? Like the two that moms really struggle with is, oh, that's still good. I don't want to throw it away. Scarcity about the money and the stuff. But really, like when you step back and look at it, because you mentioned all of these things in the time that you tried of weight loss, right? The low carb, the volumetrics, the fasting, all this different stuff. All of that stuff takes time and money, right? It takes your attention, it takes your effort, it takes money and time. And what we don't realize is like we're not willing to throw away a half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but then we spend all this money and time trying to lose weight, and it's like the sandwich is actually the least cost, right? It's like it's the smallest thing, and we sometimes really battle that. We have to kind of almost recalibrate how we see wasting or spending in a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was very pivotal for me. And then, but as I got it ingrained in my head, like, I'm not going to be finishing their food. I also adapted how I served them. I wasn't giving them heaping portions that I knew they couldn't finish. It
Mhm.
was like, they can always, they're kids, they can always have a snack later. I don't need to fuel them up for the next 12 hours.
Yes.
Hmm.
Perfect. Yeah. And then, so as you're kind of looking back, because obviously grazing was an issue, scarcity around throwing food away and having to revamp that was an issue. I also know for you taking food with you, because when you have that many kids and you've got them all in activities, you're often put in precarious situations where the food could be extremely high calorie that's being offered, or you get overly hungry. Do you recall anything that was in there that needed to be unpacked for you?
Yeah, it's just about being prepared. I mean, I always plan ahead for my kids' meals. Like, we're going someplace, what are they going to eat? Are we going to eat the food offered at the park, or am I going to pack something for them? And then taking care of myself the same way that I take care of them. Like, what am I going to eat? And sometimes that's facing the hard truth that, oh, I don't really want to eat a packed lunch. It's more exciting to eat at the theme park, but in the end, I know where that leads. I know where, um, just sort of leaving it to a last minute decision, what happens. I end up hungry. I spend more money than I want to spend, and then I'm cranky and don't feel my best.
100%. And if memory serves me right, because I know it's been a hot second since we were doing it, but I can vaguely remember you actually even being kind of shocked as to how many calories you could eat and still lose weight, because when you are somebody who is eating their kids' leftovers or kind of eating things impulsively, and maybe not everything's getting tracked or tracked honestly. I remember we had that, what was it, the Delights ice cream moment
Oh
where you're like,
yes.
wait a minute. but once things start getting tracked accurately, I remember you being kind of surprised, like, wow, I can actually eat this amount and still lose, because when all those other calories are going unreported, we think we have to eat extremely low sometimes because we're not actually getting a fair and honest depiction of what we're doing. Do you remember that? And if you could share anything around that for yourself?
Wow, Heather, you have an amazing memory. I
Oh,
have to say
awesome.
that with all the clients that you have, but that's true because when I was just sort of loosely tracking or not weighing everything, just sort of going by recall and grazing, I really thought my metabolism was damaged. Like a lot of
Mhm.
women, oh, it's broken. I should be able to eat 2,000 calories according to calculators. And here I am eating 12 to
Yeah.
1,500. Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But the honest truth was I was eating closer to 2,000 calories. I just didn't realize it.
Right.
And the delights incident that was that was kind of eye opening. There was a low calorie ice cream or soft serve place in our town, and I would go there almost daily because they
Mhm.
advertise it as being 50 calories per 4 ounces. And it did sound suspiciously too good to be true.
Right.
And you had suggested, like, well, why don't you just call headquarters and see if they can give you the calories by weight, not volume? And I remember calling, and the guy was really uh, elusive. He tried to get around. He said, well, we don't really report calories by weight. We report it by volume. I said, I know, I understand that, but just hear me out. Can you give me an idea? And when he told me, I realized that gram for gram, it was the same as a McDonald's ice cream. And I didn't need to spend $7 on this not low calorie ice cream.
Yeah.
Um, but that, I had been eating that sometimes for a lunch, like a meal replacement, thinking this is only 200 calories, but it was really more like 500 calories, which makes sense in retrospect because I was pretty full
Mhm.
afterwards.
No, I love this. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I tell this to all my clients, these mom and pop places, because that's kind of what this was. It's like a small chain mom and pop ice cream place. I would much rather see somebody get a McDonald's small ice cream cone or certain predetermined amount, because most of these chains go through a lot of scrutiny to get their calories actually tested and verified. Whereas a mom and pop place, they can put something catchy on there like, oh, 4 ounces is only 50 calories. But kind of, in a way, maybe deceiving people, not meaning to be malicious, right? But just trying to make their ice cream seem special in that way. And then when you call their headquarters or you really ask for some real information on it, they don't want to give it because they realize they haven't put it through the same process as like a McDonald's, right? So I think that that's important because if you lean heavily into that, if it's once a month, not a big deal. But you were enjoying it on a really frequent basis, and so it had to be something we really took a look at.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so then one of the things that as we started to coach longer, you started going on a lot of trips. And you guys tend to go a lot of locations, and there was always a struggle a little bit around eating on the trips. So kind of share with us what you learned in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a travel ecosystem like any kind of plan. It was more like trying to shoehorn in either what I was doing at home when we're traveling, which that can be really disruptive because y- when you're traveling, you're sort of restricted by what's available at the hotel. You got your other family members around you who want to do different things. So, before I think I would just try to restrict, like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm just not going to eat breakfast. I'm just going to have coffee, try to make it to noon, even if we were doing something active like skiing, which was really, really hard.
Hmm.
But the truth was, I was afraid to eat because I just thought it would blow the whole, week out of control. But then I experimented and eventually landed on the what I call the 2-1-1 plan, which
Ooh.
is like that's 911 in Italy, but
Yeah.
two meals similar to home like you do,
Yeah.
and um, one slightly indulgent meal and then one treat. And that kind of keeps me grounded enough that I don't go crazy and just
Yeah.
eat everything, but it's flexible enough that I can enjoy myself on the trip. Um, and I like it a lot. And if I follow that, I definitely am able to either maintain or sometimes lose weight,
That's
even if
awesome.
it's a ski trip. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Plus, I
that
feel
for
better.
Yeah, and that was for a long time because here's the problem with trips. Even though I know you go on them more frequently than most people do, they're not every day, right? So they can be sporadic. Like you might have two trips back to back, but then you maybe go 2 months without a trip, right? So this is why people might have a hard time nailing this down for themselves because it is so sporadic for the most part. And it takes repetitive pass throughs before you start to get it. And yeah, what we noticed at the beginning, it was almost like it was a lot of lower brain chatter for you going into the event. Like you were trying desperately to figure out, okay, what restaurants am I going to eat at? What am I going to do? Am I going to overly restrict and take all my food with me? And often that panic restrict mindset was just creating more problems because then you would overindulge, right? And
Right.
then it became one of those like, okay, no, better to take a more chill approach and start to figure out how to eat, like you said, similar to home, not skip meals and get ravenous because that always ends up badly, but finding a better balance for yourself to where you could enjoy. And do you find you enjoy trips more now? Can you share that?
Oh, yeah, a lot more. I can enjoy the 3 meals a day that we have together as a family and not feel like I'm needing to be isolated or separate from that fellowship that we're having because I just adapt from, in a situation. Typically, at any place that serves breakfast, there's going to be eggs, right?
Yes.
At any place that serves lunch, there's going to be some kind of protein salad thing. Occasionally I do get stuck, but I feel like I'm accomplishing both goals. I'm spending time with my family, we're making memories, and I'm not overly worried about what I'm going to eat or what I'm going to come back to on the scale when we get home.
Love that. And you brought up a very important word, and you have always been good about this. I just want to applaud you for this. You mentioned the word protein. And I just had a coaching call before getting on with you today with a client. She's like, I have no idea how to get this protein into my day. She's like, can you walk me through this? And I did. I took the time to show her. But for women out there, talk to us just a little bit. You're a mom, you're keeping up with lots of kids, you like to string train. You've always been good at prioritizing protein. Would you mind just sharing how you feel like that helps you personally? And what are some ways that you've learned to make that a consistent practice?
Well, you help me see uh, what a good amount of protein looks like. So I go by about a pound per body weight. I mean,
Graham.
a gram per pound of body weight. Sorry. And so that looks like front loading the day at breakfast time with a lot of Greek yogurt, maybe mixed with protein powder or scrambled eggs with egg whites, that kind of thing, or protein pancakes. And at lunch, it's chicken with a salad or veggies, something like that. And then dinner's pretty similar, but more on the red meat side. But that also sends the satiety through the roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you find when you don't front load your day with protein, you can get kind of ravenous later in the day, even if you've been eating other foods, and it's almost like you can't catch up,
Yeah.
right? You know you've eaten breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe a snack, but then evening comes and you're like, why am I so hungry? Why nothing is? It's just going to this bottomless pit. So that's something I've been teaching my daughters as well. Like, look, we got to get the protein in first thing in the morning, like your insurance policy. So whatever comes the rest of the day, you have that to fall
Mm-hmm.
back on. And you were asking about sources. So I do like Greek yogurt, cottage
Mm-hmm.
cheese, and I do rely on already made protein shakes because I can just grab them, drink it in the car, put it in my purse in case I get to a situation where I'm staying longer than I attended at an event or at a meeting, and I have that ready to go.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And you know what I like about listening to you talk about that? I can sometimes see in some people they resent it. Like they know that they should get it in and that it would be helpful if they did, but really they resent. I hear a lot of women say, I don't want to waste my calories on this. But when I listen to you say it and you call it an insurance plan, I think what maybe makes you so successful with getting it in and making it a priority is you've looked at the positives it brings into your life, and that helps you. I'm not saying you're perfect because no, you and I both know nobody is, but I would say it sounds like that's probably a more positive motivation for you in making sure to get it in.
Yeah, no, I've seen a difference. I just feel satiated, content, calm,
Yeah.
um, and that just gives me more energy. And also coupled with the strength training, you're adding muscle, and it just changes the shape of your body. So you look good, you feel good.
Yeah, 100%. Now you're in our maintainers group. And I think that this is an important thing because I think often there's a misconception. Well, maybe this would be a helpful place to put this too. Did you want to kind of share? Because when we got together, you didn't have a tremendous amount of weight to lose. You had some weight you did want to get off. But where I think you might have really struggled was keeping it off in a sustainable way, right? Because a lot of times, if we do extreme things to lose weight, we almost don't know how to maintain and do it well for the long haul. But I think a lot of times people think when I get to maintenance, one, I'll be completely happy with my body at all times, and I'll feel the sense of peace and internal happiness, right? And then often life just keeps lifing, and we realize that this thing we've always promised would bring us that feeling doesn't really always bring us that feeling. And this is also continuing to do the work to keep the weight off. So, kind of in your maintenance journey, what have you seen? And if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of about how much did you lose in the process?
I mean, I didn't need to lose weight. I didn't need to want to even lose a lot of weight. But I think what was dramatic was realizing that a goal it didn't make sense to have a goal weight. It made a lot more sense to have a goal weight range, which for me is a 10-pound range that I kind of float between. And, after I lost the weight with you and set out to maintain it on purpose and look back at the data after a year, my weight did naturally fluctuate about 10 pounds without any dramatic changes in my lifestyle, which told me a lot. Like, the average person who doesn't weigh themselves, their weight probably vacillates in a
Mhm.
10-pound or more range, and that's totally normal, because before I was trying to hold on to almost a single number, which would drive anybody absolutely bananas. Like, just
Yes.
imagine, it's like trying to stand on a tightrope
Yeah.
for weeks. You can't do it. And um yeah, so that just helped a lot. And then also maintaining on purpose, I learned, okay, once you no longer need to be in a deficit, where are those calories coming from? Because
Mhm.
I think the temptation is to go just celebrate, go eat out more or have more treats at the end of the day. But you encouraged me, and I implemented the policy that I would just add in little bits here and there, like cheese to your breakfast omelet, or maybe some avocado and some nuts on your salad,
Mhm.
and maybe a little bit of butter on your dinner. And that all adds up. But what's sort of genius about that is, if your weight does tend to start to swing up or go over outside your maintenance range, that's pretty easy to rein back in.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I give up without resentment? I can give up a little bit of cheese, sure. You hardly notice it, but you would notice if you're take away the treat in the evening, right? You would
Yeah.
notice that and feel resentment. So it's better to just kind of add these healthy calories in throughout the day than to close that deficit with, an extra brownie sundae in the evening.
Yeah, and so when you kind of reflect on that time, because honestly, I think that's one of the struggles almost everyone has in maintenance. It's I've spent so many years trying to lose this weight and like focusing on what program am I doing, what am I removing, how am I going to get there, and then they've never really known a sustained period of maintenance, and where they've just, like you just said, it's just like these micro adjustments, like a little bit more here, a little less here, a little bit more here, a little less here. And so for a lot of people that's wildly uncomfortable, like they feel very uncomfortable. And so can you share with us kind of about how long you've been maintaining this 10-pound range, and did you experience that feeling of discomfort, like almost like restlessness, like I'm used to dieting, or maybe just grazing and eating everything without thinking, and I don't know what to do with this like weird nuancy place I am in now?
Uh, Yeah, it was uncomfortable. I've been maintaining, I think, 4 years now, little over 4 years, because you feel a sense of elation when the scale is going down. And then if it's going up, feel naturally just kind of down. Like, what am I doing wrong? So I had to reprogram my thinking and celebrate every time my weight was in the range,
Yeah.
because really, happy scale is helpful, but you have to kind of uncouple excitement from the the little spinning dial saying that's going down, and just be like, look, another day of my weight in the range. Yay.
Yes. Yes. And so, like, based on what you see now, because 4 years is a good amount of time in maintenance, if you were to go back to the you of, say, I don't know, 6 years ago, who might have been like, not realizing a lot of the things she needed to work on, or really being attached to the scale, kind of what message would you want to take back to the you of 6 years ago based on where you are now?
Uh, Um, well, I would say trying to train myself to look at maintaining weight as being successful, whatever weight that is, because the reality is most of us gain a little bit of weight with each decade.
Mhm.
And to try to park the car, maintain on purpose.
Mhm.
I would definitely tell her to look at exercise differently. It is not the calorie burner that we think it is. Apple watches and treadmills tell us a fantasy, like, oh, you burned 500 calories doing that
Mhm.
30-minute whatever. And it our bodies don't work that way. I think that book that you have recommended, Burn by
Yeah.
what's his name?
Henry Ponser, I think it is. Dr. Henry.
Yeah,
Hmm.
right. And how they did the double labeled water, and
Hmm.
these hunter gatherers walking 15 miles a day are burning the same number of calories pound per pound as the average American. I was like, that's shocking, but that
Yeah.
does make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would walk my feet off when I had my Apple device, my watch, like, I'm going to see how many steps I get. And it wouldn't seemingly make a darn difference. And that
Yes.
was so frustrating.
Yes.
But now I move because I enjoy it and it feels good, but I don't go crazy with it because I know that there's just diminishing returns with that.
Yeah. So it sounds like 6 years ago, it would have been maybe accepting this idea of there being a range and not allowing yourself to think maintenance isn't important, right? That might have been a good message. But also what I really love about this is, and this is still a misconception. I mean, it was well ingrained in anybody raised in the 80s and 90s, move more, burn more, jazzercise, do all these things. And I love the fact you brought that book up because as a coach, I saw this time and time again. People would start exercising. They might get a little bit of a bump on the scale, but then it would always peter out. And just from the exercise. And I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. If our bodies actually are like a combustible engine and they will always burn the same amount of coal every day, that logically didn't make sense until I read his book when he talked about it being more like a corporation that wants to shore up expenses. That made perfect sense to me. Like, if we're going to overspend on running, or in your case, walking or whatever, we're going to learn how to downgrade all these other systems and conserve energy. So now, yes, you're still burning these calories for the run, but we're saving 200 on liver and digestion and whatever other systems that we can clean up because it wants to be this well-oiled and frugal machine. And it was like, brilliant. Thank you for explaining this in a way that I now can just, instead of it just being like, oh, I just know it won't work, I can actually explain why it doesn't work. I love that book for that reason.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Yes. All right. So now, having been maintained for 4 years, so at this point, this is a wink, wink, by the way, for those of you that are not watching the video. Wink, wink. Everything now has miraculously gotten easy. You never have a slip up day. You're never repeating old habits that you think, oh, I'm so glad I never make any of the same eating mistakes I've made in my past, right? We're all at that point at some point, which I'm saying no with my head, but go ahead and tell us your story.
No, definitely still make mistakes. I just
Yes.
try to get back on the course faster, whereas before I might have been lost or struggling off the bandwagon for a few days. It's more like, okay, let's just do the next right thing
Yeah.
quickly. I mean, I'll just be honest here. Last night was not a
Mhm.
great moment for me. The long day, a lot of kid drama, and I had pre-planned a half a donut, and I had the half a donut. I had part of the other half, and then my kids wanted ice cream, so I
Mm,
served them. And the next thing
yeah.
I know, I had my own large bowl of ice cream. But today I didn't punish myself. I'm just back to my normal routine, and that's like the less stressed out I get about it, the better. And I'm
Mhm.
truly, unbothered by it because I know that you can make plenty of mistakes. There's a lot of wiggle room for mistakes, but the key
Mhm.
is just getting back to forgive yourself and get back on track as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I'm assuming from everything we've talked about and just knowing you, there's a past version of yourself, whether it's 6 years, 7 years, where she would have been super hard on herself the next day and maybe tried to shore up the mistake and tried to be rigid with herself, and or just really beat yourself up internally for it. And now this is a lot of growth, what you just said, just right back to it, not going to allow it to affect me. How do you see yourself in that regard?
Yeah, I would have beaten myself up and tried to restrict the next day. So,
Mhm.
okay, let's skip breakfast, maybe skip lunch or just have a light lunch. We're just going to buckle down and really eat very little to undo the calories, or exercise, do extra running or whatever to try to undo it. But our bodies are miraculous and they have a way of just bouncing back in a great way if you treat your body with kindness and care, just
Mhm.
lovingly take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And honestly, that very rigid restriction actually for a lot of people creates a scenario. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but like when we believe we're going to be rigid the next day, it often would promote maybe a second large bowl of ice cream or one more little piece. Because when you feel like that restriction is right around the corner, for many of us, it's like, well, then I'm going to take full advantage of today because I know tomorrow is going to be miserable, right? Do you ever
Totally.
see that for yourself or something similar, like where that restrictive mindset might have created more angst for you? Or on the flip side, maybe you were going to restrict the next day, but then it sets you up for an inevitable another night of overeating because you were maybe more hungry?
Yeah, there's a cyclical nature to it, right? So
Mhm,
if you know that there's going to be restriction ahead, there's this idea that today should be a free for all, right? Let's get
mhm,
as much in as we can. Go ahead and eat not just that piece of cake you hadn't planned, but two or three more, and you know, or you succeed in not eating as much the next day, but you have to pay the tax at some point. Your body's going to get hungry and you can't ignore it, and then it just rebounds with a vengeance because you feel
yeah,
like the restriction itself is stressful. So you have an emotional aspect to it, and then you have a biological aspect of genuine hungry because you're not fueling your body.
yeah. Yeah. Those are all great points. Thank you for bringing those up. And one question I got to ask you as somebody who's been maintained for 4 years, does the lower brain thought ever flutter through your mind? I shouldn't be struggling with this by now, or I should be past this by now, or why do I keep doing this? I thought I'd be done with this by now. Does any of those thoughts ever show up?
It used to,
Yes.
because I thought this is, you know this is not complicated. This is toddlers know how to eat and move their bodies. Why don't I know how to do this? But you, through the HSM Academy, I've just learned, like, this is, some people struggle with alcohol, some people struggle with drugs, some people struggle with gambling or whatever. And this is my struggle, is going to be around food. Um, and just sort of accepting it, that it's going to be a lifelong thing, but it doesn't have to be that difficult. If I, there's just freedom in accepting it. Like, okay, this is my struggle, but um, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I have tools and just go back to those tools.
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes you have to be in maintenance long enough to go through it multiple times. And maybe some people they never will, but when you start just to notice, okay, there's a pattern. I see this as keeps flaring up from time to time, and I can get angry and beat myself up and say I should have been a different person than I am right now and this should have been this way. But it's like it's such a waste of energy and time to do that when, like what you said earlier, just get right back to it, right? Just get right back to the next best choice, move forward, let it go. Don't continue to beat myself up for it. And that's honestly the struggle I see in a lot of our maintainers in the group. And we kind of, I see, cover this on a pretty routine basis during our live webinars, is they want to see that they are somehow miraculously becoming a different person who doesn't behave this way. And when it flares up from time to time, thinking it's like, oh my gosh, when am I going to get my crap together? When is all this going to stop? And I think as soon as you can just let it go and just say, hey, everyone has something. And if this flares up from time to time, it's really just about getting right back to it, right?
Right. Yeah. Acceptance and not being so bothered by the why question is helpful. I mean, you can waste a lot of energy on why and never get anywhere. So just owning it on the front end is actually where I find a lot of freedom.
100%. And so in maintenance over this 4 years, based on what you just shared and everything, what has gotten easier for you? And what do you feel you still have to just work as diligently on as you have the whole time? Like you're like, no, I gotta still make this a really big focus for me.
Well, food logging used to be quite cumbersome, but that has definitely gotten a lot easier. And I've found you don't have to always food log by weighing and measuring everything and entering it in an app like MyFitnessPal. You can photo food log, or I mean, photo journal. You can do the
Mhm.
paper pencil journal, and it all works if you implement it.
Mhm.
That's gotten a lot easier, and it's kind of fun.
Mhm.
Um, Still struggle with feeling like, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop? Like,
Oh, good
th-
one.
things are good, but like, you never know what's gonna be around the corner. Like, but you can't live like that, right?
Mhm.
You just gotta live one day at a time. And I start my day in the Bible with prayer and kind of armor myself up. And you do the best that you can, but that's how we're meant to live, is one day at a time, not 40 or 50 days at a time.
Right, 100%. And that thought, when will the other shoe drop? I just wanna come back to that because I hear that so much from so many people. How would you describe where that thought's coming from now, kinda knowing what and having a different perspective on it? You hear it, it still catches you off guard and you don't like it, but where would that messaging maybe be coming from for you?
I think it's just it's from the flesh. It's a primitive part of
Mhm,
us that wants to stay ahead of the curve and anticipate
mhm,
problems so that we can be prepared. But life doesn't work that way. I mean, you
mhm,
certainly we're responsible for being prepared, for paying our property taxes, for making sure our kids get to the doctor every year.
yeah,
But there's going to be curveballs, and sitting in anxiety, wondering about those curveballs isn't going to help you prepare any better for them. It's better if you're in a relaxed, like, what do they call the parasympathetic
yes,
state, right? Just calm, so that when something hits you, you can respond and not react. You
mhm,
can be wise and thoughtful and not just emotional.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, by separating it and noticing, I like how you said that it's like this primitive part of us. By noticing that, of course, it's always going to wait for the other shoe to drop. That's its job, right? Like it's always saying, "Well, where's my next threat? Where's the next problem to solve?" And if you kind of know that and realize it gins you up a little bit to be like, "Whoa, where's it coming from?" It's just part of the design, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just always going to say that, right? And so the fact that you're seeing that and you're aware of it can sometimes help you talk yourself off the ledge when you're feeling like you've got to find the next problem to fix.
Yeah, and I think having kids helps in a way, because you have some each of the four kids is like a different version of my lower brain. I've got one kid who's like, "Oh, what about this, mom?" And what we were literally driving to the concert of his life on Saturday night, and my 11-year-old said, I'm a little scared." And I said, "What are you scared for? You've been looking forward to this for months."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, you're right. I don't know why I'm scared." And I just, like, that's like my lower brain sometimes,
Yeah.
just fearful for no good reason.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you just see it acted out in these children. And I know how to talk to my kids out of their kind of lower brain, fleshly thoughts, but it's learning to talk to myself that way. Like, okay, Kelly,
Yeah.
we're not going to worry about what's going to happen in July. Today is May 19th. Let's just worry about what I can do today.
Yeah, 100%. And that can actually be also very deceiving sometimes. Sometimes it'll say like what's going to happen and what's going to go wrong. But sometimes it's also worrying about what other people might think of us, right? Or having a social event at our house that we're hosting, and what if I forget this and what if I forget that? Like it shows up in so many ways. And have you seen this be something that, like, when you're thinking about others, you might try to get in their head, and guess how they're going to think and feel, and try to decide what you're going to do? Do you see it showing up in that way too?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's a common female trait, that because we care about other people, we can get a little bit carried away with that too, and try and get into their heads and worry about what they're thinking about us. But really, that's not our domain of responsibility. I can
Yes.
control I can control what I do. I can,
Yes.
honor God with my life. I can act with kindness and generosity, but I'm not going to worry about what, Sarah from whatever is
Yeah.
thinking about what am saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I brought that up because I can remember a time when we were talking about that. You're like, I think I have a friend who might be overstepping their boundaries and I don't know how to put a little distance in and I'm afraid I'm going to hurt their feelings. And we get so busy in our minds about wanting to appease possible other people's dilemmas that we don't even 100% know before we've even done anything, right? Like we're way ahead in our minds. And sometimes it's just reeling it back and saying, okay, well, what's true for me? What is it I need to communicate to this person? And I can't, like how you said, that's not in my realm or necessarily my responsibility, to be able to say that this person's going to feel this way. I don't know, right? And it's
Right.
being okay with that. Awesome, awesome. And so in all of this, what would you say between like coaching, being in the academy, what are some of the things that you have learned that you feel like maybe I wish I had known this sooner, or if I had maybe learned this in college, it would have been helpful? Is there anything that you can see that, or things that maybe you're sharing with your kids that, you wish the younger you had learned?
Well, going back to the protein again, I think because we've just been so indoctrinated with the low fat, move more, eat less dogma, it's worth advocating more for that for our kids, for my old self, that really is a cornerstone for changing how I eat and my relationship with my food.
Mhm.
Um, not all calories, I mean, calories all are equal, but they do different things in your body. So the protein is just kind of a game changer.
Mhm.
And it feels like you're able to eat more, even if it's the same number of calories.
Mhm.
And then another thing I would probably do is tell myself or younger people to meal plan, to put that on your calendar and think through the week ahead. I used to just meal plan dinners, but really I'm cooking breakfast and lunch as well. So I put that in there too. And it avoids these quote unquote emergencies
Mhm.
where you're making poor decisions because you just didn't take the 10 minutes or whatever on
Right.
Sunday to plan ahead.
No, that's great. Yeah, and I think was it you or somebody else who said, "My kid was like, 'Mom, I need to check my calendar.'" Was that your kid or was that a different
Yeah.
kid? Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, no, I don't know what's happening here." But you've gotten obviously somewhat better with your boundaries and time management if your own kids are noticing that too, right?
Yeah, I'm starting to hear them say things like, "Can I think about that first? Can I
Yeah.
check my calendar and get back to you?" Um, which is great, right? I love hearing them adopt some of these little phrases that
Yeah.
puts in that pause so they're not just reacting
Saying
all the time.
yes. Yeah.
Saying yes to everybody and everything.
Honestly, I think that's the thing. Like, I know I've learned from my own journey that I'm teaching my kids as well. And I wish my younger self had known is be less reactive, more intentional. And that's what you just said here, like realizing how much the protein is helping you, being intentional with getting that in your day, putting things on your calendar because you don't want to overcommit or put yourself in a precarious situation where you can't eat the food that's going to support yourself or however you want to look at that. You're being more intentional with your life, not as reactive, like so and so needs this, so and so wants that. I'm just jumping all around, feeling like I'm spinning out because I don't really have a plan for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it perfectly.
Love it. So for moms out there that are in your situation, maybe they got some teens they're running around, some younger kids, they feel really like put upon and like this isn't a possibility for them right now. Like, how am I going to lose this weight, pull this off? What would your maybe advice be to them or words of encouragement, having been there yourself while you were doing it and you are continuing to be there?
Well, I would say step one is, if they haven't already done so, to join the academy. Don't hide. Like, there's a lot of us who struggle, and we don't like to talk about it because it feels like, gosh, we don't have it all together, but nobody has it together. So
Yes.
don't hide. Engage with the community. Progress starts when you stop trying to do it alone. And often, we love our spouses, we love our friends, but it doesn't feel like a safe place to kind of share these kinds of struggles with. So that's where the academy really shines, because, hey, they're all like us. We have similar goals, and we might be in different places in our journey, but we're trying to make lasting changes through habits.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess I would have a message about having boundaries with love, right? Enjoy the food that you like, plan for it, and don't overly restrict. Have a meal plan, for the week, have a meal plan for the day, start small. Move your body for the fun of it, for joy, not for punishment. And, and when you start to make these changes in your own life, it's going to have a glowing effect, sort of a infectious effect on the rest of your family. They'll be adopting these without you even having to explicitly teach it or set up new rules, right? They're going to be adopting these things, and you're going to start a new family legacy where maybe your kids don't have the same struggle. It just seems effortless because they've lived and breathed it through you.
Yes, 100%. I love all of that because I think often moms with kids, they're trying to put kids and family 100% first, and or they aren't really, again, being intentional. They're being very reactive to everything coming their way. And when I hear you mention get support, be with people who you can take a time out with and say, hey, I'm still here. I need to work on me too. And you also said the thing about boundaries, which honestly, for moms with kids, you have to have boundaries with your kids. You have to have boundaries with your spouse. You have to have boundaries with all the people who want you to participate and contribute in different ways. Because if mom is being pulled in 101 directions, then mom has no bandwidth to take care of herself.
Right. And boundaries are something that are just for the sake of self-preservation, we all have to have, not to
Mhm.
overcommit and burn out. But also, I'd like to think about how I'm teaching my own kids boundaries when I put them in place with myself. They know, like, if you
Yes.
come to my room before a certain time, I'm not available in the
Yes.
morning first, right? Okay, sweetie, go ahead and start unloading the dishwasher. I'll be there at
Yes.
6:30 to help with breakfast, but I'm not
I love that.
just constantly at everybody's beck and call. And gosh, when they get to be teenagers, it is really important, or even
Mhm.
preteens. You want that your kids to know exactly
Self-sufficient.
what that looks like, right? They need to have boundaries with peers who might have bad suggestions, like, what does
Mhm.
that look like? They've seen me leave a party at a certain time because I'm honoring my bedtime boundary, right? And my teenagers who are 17 now are pretty fearless when it comes to that. Like, okay, I'm going to go to such and such grad party, but I'm leaving by 9:30 because
Yeah.
I know what happens when I don't honor my own need for sleep
Yeah.
boundary.
That's beautiful. And that's what you see. And this is where we as moms can shift this whole discussion because you took the time to learn this for you and you implemented it for you, you have now given your 17-year-old and your other kids the ability to do it for themselves. Not because you opened up a book and said, "Hey kids, read this book called Boundaries,"
Right.
or you said, "Hey guys, watch this how-to video on boundaries." You actually did the thing in front of them and let them be the recipient of, "Hey, mom right now is in the middle of doing something. Sorry, sweetheart, can't do it." You showed them a kind way to deliver boundaries to where they've got skills and tools most kids their age would not have because the parents don't have it, right? You can't teach what you don't know. And so it's like you, by taking that time to do it for you, now have given your kids and their future children the possibility of doing this behavior because it's now generational. It's getting passed down. You see what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%. And listen, I have tried to get them to read the book. They're
Yes,
not going to read it. They
they're not
never
going to read
read
the
the
book.
book. It's
No.
just you save yourself the time and effort, and and kids can spot hypocrisy
Oh,
from a mile away. So if they even if you tell them to do one thing and you're doing
and you're not
another.
doing it. Yeah, they're going to call you on it, right? They're going to be like, Mom, you told me to read the book Boundaries, but then you're doing this, this, and this, and you don't ever go to bed on time. Like they will totally call you on it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. So, Kelly, I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed coaching you. I've enjoyed working with you. I just want to say a very big thank you. And if somebody did want to reach out to you and either ask a question or just say thank you for the episode, would you want them to contact you directly, or would you want them to contact me and just reference this number and I can forward it on to you? What would you prefer?
If you don't mind being the intermediary, I would love that. If they can reach out to you and then you can reach out to me.
Absolutely. So you heard it here. If you would like to reach out to Kelly for anything, please just forward me the message, heather@halfsizeme.com, and then make sure you reference this particular podcast number and I'll make sure to send it to her. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule today, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to visit halfsizeme.com. Check back often for your daily dose of inspiration because you are worth it.
The information you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The host is not a medical professional. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.